Welcome back to the Affinity Insurance Podcast. My name is Savannah Abney, and I have one of our amazing insurance experts with me today, Alyssa Wilcox. We're going to be talking about all things around contractors. So when you hire a third-party vendor or contractor, it's really important you understand the insurance implications around that. Whether you're in a high-risk management space or not, COIs are still incredibly important. We're going to talk through everything around it today. So my first question for you, Alyssa, is just generally why it's dangerous to hire independent contractors without proper insurance. But I think a lot of business owners assume using independent contractors limits their liability. But can you explain why that's actually not the case?
So, I think that, yeah, we're seeing a lot more companies categorizing employees as independent contractors. And here in California, we have very strict labor laws. And so they specifically address how to, confirm that your employee or the person working for you is, in fact, an independent contractor. So one of the qualifications is that they run and operate their own independent business. And so an independent business should then also carry their own general liability insurance at the very least. So if you're hiring an independent contractor and not verifying that they have their own insurance, you could be responsible for any claims that are brought up against your business because these folks are providing services on behalf of your business. So if a claim were to come, something were to happen, your client could then come to you and sue you rather than the independent contractor who's doing the physical work. Additionally, if you have a workers' comp policy and you have these independent contractors, if they're not able to provide proof of their own general liability insurance, other, workers' comp, if they have employees as well, you're going to have to pay premium for the work that they're doing. So, it opens up just a lot more exposure for you as a business owner.
Think that line between W-2 employee and 1099 contractor has become very, very thin, and it's a blurry line. And the reality is the only thing that's actually different is the tax implication at this point, but the liability piece is pretty much the same. They're still a representative of your company, whether they're actually on hand them out on W-2 at the end of the year or not.
Exactly. Yeah, you definitely still have that exposure from a liability standpoint.
So, talking about the exposure, what kind of risks or exposures could a business face if there is damage? You kind of started to talk about it, but could you give us a couple of examples of what that could look like? If you own a landscaping company, okay, you wouldn't normally think this is like super high risk, but there's some possibility. You're using sharp tools, like big equipment. Maybe you hire everybody on a contract basis. You're not doing full W-2 employees. Something happens, let's say they damage the homeowner that they're working on their yard, they damage that. The liability, my understanding is, doesn't come back on that contractor, it comes back on your company because you were still the one that was contracted to do the work for that homeowner, correct?
Yeah, exactly. In that case, say the homeowner, their property was damaged, they're going to come back and expect you as the business owner to fix the damage, whether that be through a lawsuit, which, if you can avoid, obviously, by just doing repairs directly to avoid getting lawyers involved, that's always ideal. If you're not having those independent contractors fully insured on their own, you are going to be holding the responsibility for it. Additionally, if you're not, telling your carrier that you have these independent contractors, there's a potential that they could also deny the claim. So not only are you having to deal with the headaches involved with fixing the errors, but then you might actually have to go out of pocket. So I think it's important to, obviously we can use independent contractors, but make sure that they are fully insured and that they carry $1 million general liability limits, and then also disclose that information to your carrier.
So it seems like the easiest way to go about it is to only hire people who are already insured personally themselves. How do you go about verifying that they have done that so that you know who to hire and who to not?
Yeah, I think that, obviously requesting proof of insurance is important. They can provide you with a copy of their declaration page, which kind of outlines all of the coverage that's included in the policy. They can provide you with a certificate of insurance. I think that if you are hiring an independent contractor, I always recommend having them add you as an additional insured. Oftentimes, it is an endorsement that's included on a blanket basis. So, in your contract with an independent contractor, you can outline the insurance requirements, and I think that is important. Have a contract with your independent contractors, outlining what they are required to carry from an insurance standpoint, and you can include the language as an additional insured so that in that case with the landscaper where they caused the damage and you are brought into a lawsuit, their insurance will cover you for the work that they did.
So we know how important it is to show proof of insurance, but can you explain in a little more detail what a COI, certificate of insurance, actually is? And maybe just give business owners a couple tips on what to look for when those are presented to make sure they're legitimate, they're, you know, all put together correctly, they have all the information they need.
Yeah, so a certificate of insurance is a representation of the insurance that you have in place. These are things that are issued by licensed insurance agents like myself and like Affinita Insurance. And essentially, we're just as the agents, we're just representing the insurance that's on the policy. What you want to look for are, of course, that the policy is active, and that the limits are sufficient to meet your needs. From a general liability standpoint, 1 million per occurrence, 2 million aggregate is the norm. And I think that's what you should require of businesses that you're working with. Aside from that, you can put all the fancy language that you want, like the additional insured endorsement, for example. But I would always request to have a physical copy of the actual endorsement that would be included in the policy just as a backup, because not everyone operates in an ethical manner. Sometimes they might just put the language in to satisfy, their client, but if that endorsement isn't actually on the policy, it's not doing you any good.
Well, this is really, really helpful. We hope that you found it helpful as well. Be sure to tune in for next month's episode. And in the meantime, if you want to learn more about insurance and how it can benefit your business and actually create real ROI out of insurance, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. We'll see you next time.